Hey everyone, it's Stephen here, obviously, here with another really cool call today with a really great guest, somebody who I only got to know recently, but I am 110% certain is really going to inspire everybody today, inspires me as well. So we're here with Katie Richardson. Katie, how you doing?
Doing amazing, Stephen. I'm excited to be here and talk about creation and brands and everything that we're going to be discussing.
Absolutely, yeah. So the background, as I mentioned to you on our call when we got to know each other first, was everybody here is building a business on Amazon, and the reason you're here today is to tell your story around the business you've built, because it's more, as I talked about before, we have the marketplace model and then we have the brand model. So you're
Yeah.
somebody I would consider as really mastered the brand model. So that's what we're going to talk about today, different to what we usually talk about, but I'm excited to do it. So with that said, let's break down and let everybody know a little bit about yourself and obviously your story of how you built your brand and what happened.
I live in the Pacific Northwest, on the very west coast of the US in Portland, Oregon, and I'm a mother of four. I'm also a trained product designer, and so making things has always been in my blood. When I was a kid, my mom always had like radial arm saws and rip saws, and I had access to these tools at a really young age, and I loved cutting wood and making things and doing what I could to like make a lamp out of metal. And it was just, I loved exploring and making and creating. And that led me to studying product design, went to school, did really well in school, and loved creation and learning and mastering the creation process.
Yeah.
And when I was a young mom and I had a couple kids, I was in a store, and keep in mind, like, our personal financial situation at that time. Also, my husband is a product designer as well. I should share that.
Yeah.
He was working for a design firm in Portland and designing products for other companies. And I was a young mom. We had two kids with hopes and dreams of having more someday. And I was shopping in a store, and the boutique owner came over to me and said, "Where'd you get all this stuff?" And she was talking about a hat and a blanket and shoes and even a baby carrier that I was using. And again, like, I was just a young mom. I had a sewing machine. I had inherited my mother's 1962 Bernina. I actually still have this really cool old machine.
That's cool.
And it works really well. And I just, when my kids were asleep or taking a nap or something like that, I would make things. And that's when I felt alive, was making things. And so I loved doing this. But at the same time, I lacked a lot of confidence in myself and my abilities.
Yeah.
And so I'm in this store, and she attacks me, asking me where I got all this stuff. And with this kind of embarrassed face, it was like, "Oh, you mean this? I made it." And she said, "You made this? Well, I want you to make it for my store. I go to all the trade shows, and this is hot." Yeah. And immediately when she said that, all these walls came up, and I was like, "What? No, I don't have a business. Can't you see I'm a mom? I'm really, really busy. Yeah. I don't have time for that." I had so many excuses, Stephen. And really, it was just a massive lack of confidence. And she grabbed me by the shoulders and looked me square in the eyes and said, "Look, I understand that you're really busy right now, but someday these kids are going to grow up and they'll be in school full time, and you're going to have more time on your hands, and you will wish that you had done something with this gift and this talent of yours." Yeah. And in that moment, she transported me into the future and helped me look back and experience a very powerful feeling, and that is regret.
Yeah.
Suddenly, I felt this feeling I didn't know I might be feeling someday. And in fact, there was this piece of me that wasn't being developed, if you will. Like, I had spent so much time and energy in school developing this talent, and then I just kind of put it on the back burner, and I kept telling myself, I don't need that. Like, my goal was to get a degree, and I got my degree, and that's great. And now I'm a mom.
Yeah.
And I think in a lot of ways I had this conflict of, well, I can't explore my gifts and talents and be a mother at the same time. Like, there's just those two things are incompatible.
Yeah.
And long story short, she opened the door to entrepreneurship for me, and I had to make a choice. And I could go into all of the fear and the doubt and all of the things that were preventing me from even walking through that door. But I eventually made a choice where I said, okay, I'm going to explore this. I don't know what this is going to end up looking like. I don't know what it's going to be, but I can't not walk through this door. And so that's what I did.
That's great. So many things about that I took away as well, because, with my whole journey, very different to yours. I think the one pattern that's similar though was you had this kind of ceiling on your ambition, you know, which I certainly felt in a different way. I didn't have kids and anything like that at the time, but it's a ceiling, right? We both felt the same thing. The thing that I take away from your story, like as I told you before, like just a recent new dad, whatever, it's great. But at the same time, you know, I look at my own wife and all the things that she's doing with one kid. I transported to you with 2 kids now. And it's a really, like, it's a huge achievement to even get beyond that ceiling, because it's so understandable that, and again, I don't pretend to know how you felt, because that was not my situation, but yeah, really powerful. I think a lot of people listening right now even will be thinking, what's my current ceiling? So with that said, this person opened the door to entrepreneurship, and you started to believe in what she was saying. Maybe you didn't believe in yourself that much, which is cool. But what was the thing was it the regret of the future that made you go, I'm just going to do this, I don't care? Or what was the moment where you said, I don't care, I'm just going to do it? Because I think even a lot of people listening today, maybe they're going through that now and they're trying to find that little spark. So where was that for you?
Yeah, this is a really good question. At the time, I couldn't understand it all, honestly. And as I look back, I feel like I now, 12 years later, I have it's actually been more like 14. I feel like I have a greater understanding of what was going on then. And like you said, there were so many limitations in my mind. And I think when we're young, we learn to dream. And I had achieved all of those dreams that I had allowed myself to dream in my life. I'd gotten this really cool degree and had learned some really amazing skills. I had gotten married to an amazing man, and I had gotten married. Like that was as far as I'd ever taken myself in my young mind. And so what needed to happen was I needed to understand how to expand that. And it was a slow process. I think there were 2 things that were really important in allowing me to begin to move forward. I didn't try and sit at home and like whiteboard it out or get out a sketchbook and make this big grand plan. I couldn't. From that perspective, I couldn't make a plan. My plan would have been extremely limited. But I could say yes to making product for her. I was like, I can say yes to that. Yes. And beyond that, I didn't know. And like, I didn't know how I was going to make it. I didn't know where I was going to get the materials. Like, I was buying materials at my local fabric store, but if I'm going to make for a bunch of people, I need to get it at wholesale. I didn't know the answers to that. I don't know who I called to do that. But what I did have was an opportunity in front of me that I could say yes to, and then figure the rest out later.
Awesome.
And so that's what I did. I said yes. She asked me to think about it. I went home that night. I told my husband about it at the dinner table, and he was all about it because he is just like full-blooded entrepreneur, and I was a non-identifying entrepreneur, if you will. In fact, Entrepreneur Magazine has written an article about this story, and they called it the accidental entrepreneur. I didn't know that's what I was. I thought I was just a stay-at-home mom that likes to make things, but I soon discovered that I needed a vehicle to do that would provide the opportunities and resources. And it turns out entrepreneurship was that vehicle. Awesome. So I really think there were 2 keys. It was one, I couldn't believe in myself in that moment, but I could see her faith and belief in me, and even my husband's, that I said, okay, I'm going to trust these people and say yes and go figure it out. And so it was just that willingness to move forward without having all of the answers. And I think so often that's what keeps us stuck, is we say, I can't make a decision and I can't move forward until I know this, and this, and this, yes, and how it's going to end up, and if that's where I want to go. And I will tell you that will be the death of your progress, both personally and in your business, if you can't make choices and move forward without knowing the answer and where it's going to end up.
Yeah. There's a great book that we actually reference sometimes. I remember it's called Not Knowing, I think it's called. And it's
Love it.
Similar idea that you're talking about. So you didn't know, but you act in that moment. So then let's talk then about, you got this opportunity. Let's talk about what happened there, what you discovered. And then we'll obviously get into the big business that you've built, which is going to blow a lot of people's minds. And it's kind of cool that we didn't start with that. I like sometimes, it's like a little bit of mystery. No one quite knows exactly like just how big your business got, which I look forward to getting into. So let's dig in there now.
I love this because I feel like so often this is the story that doesn't get told, right? Everybody tells the moment when I did $1 million, and that's cool and exciting, but it was the foundation that I was building years prior that's critical. And a lot of people want to miss that and skip it. And there's very essential learnings in what I'm about to share with you. So I said yes to her, and I actually called up my mom. I was like, hey mom, will you make 20 slings for me? I had them designed, and I started making some calls, and I figured out how to buy the fabric wholesale. I said, I'll ship you everything. Can you just make these for me? And she was like, sure. My mom's an amazing seamstress. So my mom makes them for me. She sends them back, and I had her make extra. So I sold my original, I think it was like 20 to the first store, and then I had some more. And I was like, well, I wonder if there's other stores in the area who also want to carry this. And it was interesting because I now had some credibility and validation. And I said, I could go to another store and say, hey, guess what? Meryl and Camus, she just bought 20 of these and sold the first 10 in a week. Would you be interested? Their ears immediately perk up. There's massive validation. And it's not me being needy of them, right? And I was really clear. I'm not a salesperson. I wasn't even identifying as an entrepreneur at the time. So I just walked in as Katie, who's a mom who likes problem solving, and I have a solution that I think might work for your customers.
Cool.
And it was that approach. And so I went to another store and another store, and pretty soon I was in most of the boutiques in my city. And then I went to San Francisco and I did the same thing. I didn't have appointments with these people. I didn't even know who I was going to need to be talking to, but I knew I was learning a lot. And I knew that once I could have a face-to-face conversation with them, it would be more likely to be able to get a sale. And so then I went to Seattle and did the same thing. Then I signed with a regional sales rep who took it to regional trade shows. And she got me into a bunch of stores. And it was this process, Stephen, of expanding. I still remember the feeling I had the day after I had dropped off my product in the very first store and watching her set it up on the store shelf and put my little display that I had created for it. I just remember the excitement of realizing something I have created is out there in the world. It meant so much to me. Yeah. And then pretty soon I wanted more of that. And that was honestly the driver for me. Is I liked helping people. And this was a way for me to help people as a young mom in a way that worked with my time and my schedule. And so I just kept expanding this.
Yeah. So the product then, again, just for anybody who's not sure, it was a sling product for babies, right?
Yes. And it's actually a really smart product to start with, because when you have a cut and sew product, you can usually start with really low volume, and you can order them 100, 200, 500 at a time, which typically for a big manufacturer, that's small potatoes. They won't give you the time. And I paid more than what I would have at a really big factory, but my overall cash out of my pocket was significantly lower. And it was a chance for me to prove the concept, prove the market, get to know business, and build a website and just understand how to put together a line sheet and get familiar with QuickBooks and know how to invoice people. I was learning so much in that process of kind of playing small, if you will. But it was essential learnings that would then come into play later on as we grew.
Yeah. So let's talk about the product for a second, because maybe people don't ask you about this, but I think our audience will find it interesting listening now. And that is like sling products are out there, right? They're already out there. So how did you identify how to improve what was already out there, and what was the new offer you made that innovated on what was already out there before, if you don't mind breaking that down?
I love this. Okay. So you actually used a really interesting word. You said, how did I improve it? And my product was not an improvement. It was different. And I understood that it was different. Essentially, the design came out of looking at all of the solutions on the market. And I made a list of everything I didn't like that those solutions did or had, or how they functioned. I made a list of everything I didn't like about it. Yep. And then from that list, I created a list of everything that the ideal solution would have and be. And the creation process for me, it starts with getting out of my head and sketching out ideas. Wouldn't it be cool if it does this? And kind of exploring, letting our mind be free and thinking outside of the realms of possibility, if you will, and just kind of playing and having fun, which is a big part of my character. I like having fun. And so I had fun with this whole process. And then I came up with a solution that I felt solved the problems of the existing solutions on the market. Like mine supported the baby better, which made them like up against your body stronger, which made them feel more safe and secure. So they were less fussy. It was also super, super simple, easy to put on. I could put it on as I was walking into the grocery store, and I would have women who would stop me and be like, "Where'd you get this thing?" And I was like, "Oh, I made it. Here's a card and you can go buy it." It was just super, super simple. And I didn't try and have all these features. I just wanted it to do one thing and do that really, really well.
Yes. And so when you approached the different companies initially that you were selling to, obviously you got some rejections, and obviously you had a lot of sales too, right? So then, because I think the rejection part might be interesting for people that are, maybe they're see, like you said something interesting. You were talking about 200 to 500 units, right? And a lot of times in our world, the Amazon world, when they're validating their products, it's that kind of quantity, typically depends on the FOB price, etc., that they're going to negotiate. So I love that, number one. Even with that, like, you would deem that a small number, because obviously when we get into where the business got to, it changed dramatically. So even from a mindset standpoint, I think that's good for people listening. But then the rejection standpoint, things didn't go as planned in those situations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What way did you approach that from a mental standpoint? Was it
like,
oh, it's game over, or look on them, or how did you look at that?
It was this process of a couple different things. One, showing up really, really open and actually listening to the store owner or the customer, being like learning to separate my worth, my value as an individual and a person, my ego, if you will, separating that and being able to look at the product and idea with really fresh eyes without feeling like I need to get defensive.
Yes.
And just honestly listening. And so I would go into stores and show them things, and I would try to, and it was hard for me in the beginning. It was really, really hard because I didn't have a lot of experience and I didn't have a lot of validation. And so it was easy for me to want to get defensive. But I noticed that if I could listen to them and not give them all my reasons why and excuses why it was designed that way, and not make it personal, if I could listen to them, and then when I stepped away, I would ask myself, okay, did we connect in that conversation? What was getting in the way? What was working? What wasn't working? And I would try and learn from each interaction and then take those learnings to the next conversation.
Awesome.
And I think the biggest piece though is separating our worth, our value, our ego from the conversation. It's critical. And I've had a lot, I mean, I could tell you so many stories of where I've had to learn that again and again on a whole new level.
Well, it's great though, because you become a more open individual. You're easier to talk to. People don't feel like they can't say something to you. And I think that's
cool.
So, okay. So you're selling the slings, you're doing well. You're flying everywhere selling the slings. You got that regional person to help you sell more. So obviously, like, where did things move to there?
Yeah.
Let's get to like expanding the product line and then maybe moving it online. When did that happen and stuff? Yeah.
Oh, moving online was in 2007. My husband was really excited about what I was doing, and he found a friend of a friend who was a web developer, and for Christmas, he built me a website. This gets me all emotional. It was really cool. I wasn't expecting that. Yeah. It was the first time I started to see myself as an entrepreneur. I was like, I still remember my kids running around and one of them on my hip, and just being like, just looking at that and feeling like, wow, this is a real thing. I'm really doing this. This is a real business. And I now had a link that I could send to people and say, hey, you want to buy something? Here you go. You can click the link here.
That's great.
And that was 2007. Amazon Prime didn't even exist. People weren't buying stuff online. I was way ahead of my time. But at the same time, that website did really, really well.
And so how did you, even then, what way were you getting people to the site then? Was it mostly like an SEO thing, or was it more, were you buying advertising back then, or what were you doing? Because obviously you didn't have Amazon sending you tons of customers every day, right?
Okay, I knew nothing about SEO, but I did know how to connect with people. I started to understand that I was really good at connecting with people and aligning what I want with what they want. Yeah. And really, like, that's the key to sales. And I refined that skill with each of those conversations I was having with the store owners. And what I started to do was I started to do that on the online world. And there was this whole ecosystem of mom bloggers.
Yes.
And I started connecting myself to these mom bloggers because I knew they were already in conversation with women who needed my product, who needed a better solution. They just didn't know about mine. And so I started asking myself, how can I get in front of those women in a way where they're already hanging out there and I just need to insert myself? And so I started developing relationships, and I didn't know these people. And I have to tell you, at the time, it felt like I was reaching out to like Bono or something. Like, these women they had massive audiences. They had really big influence. It was kind of pre-influencers, if you will.
Yeah.
And I just, like, it was intimidating for me. I was a nobody. I was working out of my garage. I had, like I said, I usually had a kid either at my ankles or on my hip. And so I still have a lot of that false belief that I'm not really a businesswoman and I need to kind of hide that about myself. Yeah. But I started reaching out to people and saying, hey, I've been having a lot of success with this product in the Pacific Northwest. I wonder if you might want to try it yourself. And if you did, it would be amazing if you shared it with your audience. And so that's what I started to do. And that was getting me a lot of attention. And it was cool because all I was paying for was the cost of the product and to ship it, which was like, absolutely, under $20. But the product itself was retailing for $48. And so if I sell one, I've made back my money.
Yeah, yeah. But I love that. Again, like, there was no ninja tactic, like, right? It was just you had a real drive behind it. You believed in what you were selling. And that's why, like, even with what we were talking about with Marketplace Superheroes, like, we talked about this before, like, the right time to move into what Katie's talking about, building this brand, as you can see, the passion she has behind you. And by the way, give us some ones in the chat box, in the comments. Oh my God, I sound like a granddad there. Give me one in the comments if you're enjoying everything so far, because I think we're all learning a lot so far. But with that said, I was coming back to what I was saying, whereby everybody listening, when you move to a brand, you can see, like, having that passion behind what you're selling, but also having validated it, like what Katie was talking about earlier on. That's huge, because it's not like you went in, I don't know if this is going to work. You knew the product worked. You knew it was a great product. You knew you believed in the product. And then people feel that. And the great news for anybody listening, that still works today. I mean, I do it. You probably still do it now, Katie, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. And I love that you're bringing up brand, because that was actually a piece that came before my products were even fully developed. Is I started to ask myself, like, if I'm going to put something out there into the world, I truly want it to be adding value to people. And I don't want to just be making junk and tricking people into buying something that they don't need. I didn't feel good when that happened to me as a consumer, and I wanted to do the opposite. And so before I started really manufacturing these things, if you will, I really started asking myself some questions like, if I'm going to put a brand on this, what does that brand stand for? And what are the values that I have that I can infuse into these products? And at the time, there were some other women doing similar things to me. But the foundation of what they were doing was, I'm going to make something cute, or I'm going to make something modern. And like, that has a little bit of value, but it's not long lasting. And I wanted to create a really solid foundation for my company. And so I looked at my life as a mother, and I looked at my values as a designer, and I came up with the phrase simplifying parenthood. I really just felt like there was so much chaos just in the fact that we now had a baby in our home. And then so often these products, I bought them thinking I needed them, and then they didn't work well, and I needed instructions, and they were just tricky, and you needed 3 hands to open the stroller. And it was just, I didn't like the fact that motherhood in itself and parenting was complicated enough. And I didn't like that these products were escalating my energy, if you will, like making me frustrated. I didn't like that. And I wanted my products, if I was going to make something, I wanted it to do the opposite. I wanted it to be intuitive and simple and to calm you down as a parent, because I could see myself that the energy I was putting off was absolutely what my child and infant was taking on. And so I wanted to do everything that I could to quiet the noise, if you will, simplified parenthood, and allow parents to have these bonding moments with their kids and not get in the middle of that.
Absolutely. But that's so we haven't even talked about the brand name yet. So can you tell everybody what the brand name is?
It's actually a really cool story. So I originally was starting out with a name called Zoo Modern, and I spelled it Z-U. And I had sold to about 25 stores as Zoo Modern. And I called up my brother one day and I said, hey, I'm thinking, this is getting kind of big. I was in 25 stores and thought that was amazing. And I started doing some international searches, and I had seen that if I went into France, there was a potential trademark conflict. Yeah. I called my brother, who's an attorney, and I said, what do you think? Like, is this that big of a deal? And he said, Katie, you want to stay as far away from any litigation as you can. And at first I was scared, and I was like, I've already sold to 25 stores as Zoo Modern. And it took me several days to kind of get over it. Yeah. And then I finally took on this new perspective of, okay, when I started this company, 6-7 months ago, I had a very limited perspective when I created that brand. What if I create a new name and brand and I start really fresh, but with a new perspective, with some experience under my belt? And so I did. And one of the things that I wanted was I wanted a name that was graphically iconic and that the letters itself could become the logo. And I like symmetry and I like balance. And so I just got out my journal, actually, and I made the decision I wanted my name to be 3 letters. And so I just started writing out 3-lettered words, real ones, made up ones, things that just came to me. There's no filtering when it comes to brainstorming. Yeah. And I just started putting down all kinds of stuff. And then, like 4 or 5 of them really stood out to me. So I pulled those ones off and I played around with those ones. And then 2 stood out to me. And I took those 2 and I started, adding thickness to them and like detail and trying to decide where I want this to go. And we ultimately landed with the company called Pudge, P-U-J. Yep. And I loved it because it was representative of the child. I wanted all of my products to allow you as a parent to really focus on your baby, your infant, or your Pudge. And it was cool because it had all of these other benefits that I began to realize, which like puj.com, I could get that for a really reasonable price. And even if somebody went into Google and typed it in, my PUJ was coming up as number 4 without optimizing any SEO or anything like that. So it's just like, and internationally, I could own that, I could trademark it. And so it made a lot of sense, and I was able to infuse my story into the name, into the logo. And if anybody wants to go look at it, it's puj.com. You go look at it, and it's cool because all of those values that I'm telling you about, they were infused in a very intangible way, but real way. They were all infused into this brand. And it's cool because I can't tell you how many times, Stephen, people have come to me just seeing the name and the logo and something touches them. They're curious, they're interested, they want to know more. And it was all engineered into the creation of it all.
Love that. No, it's great, and for everybody listening, you can see the level of detail that Katie went into, obviously, but you can see the level of detail that when you get to the point where you really want to build this brand now, after having validated it on Amazon, that's where you can go. And obviously, everybody listening, you guys can start from scratch on something like this, like what you're hearing today, which is really inspiring. So look, in many ways, Katie, my whole goal, by the way, is I bring people on just to inspire our community. And so far, like, I'm just like loving the story. It's great for me to hear a lot of the other things that I know. Some things I didn't know, some other things. So that's really cool. So now let's give us, everybody that's listening, like a snapshot of where Pudge is now as a company, where it's going. And then where it is now, where it's going. And I'd love to talk about the role of Amazon in your business as well when you build up the brand. That'd be great.
Okay, cool. Love this.
I'll remind you in case you forget. Don't worry.
Okay, yeah, I might need some reminding. I can get really deep in some of the stories. So I had this little business on the side. I was making, 50 or 60,000, which was pretty good with these slings, but it wasn't enough for me and my husband to work together. And it was over a Christmas break. He said, Katie, what if we designed a product that was a total game changer and that would allow me to quit my job and we could work together and we could mass produce this on a big scale? And it was just kind of this big and wild dream. My husband is a big dreamer. And I love saying yes to things and then going to figure it out later. And so even though I had a lot of fear and doubt and it was like, are you kidding me? Like, that's massive. We're barely getting by right now. At the same time, I was like, this will be fun. And I would think that would be super cool to work together. I'm just going to move forward with this. So we did. We spent Christmas break sketching out ideas, cutting up cardboard and paper and kind of testing things out. And we developed a prototype of what eventually became the Pudge Tub. And this very first prototype, my kids were too old it's an infant bathtub.
Yep.
And it hangs in stores flat, and then it folds into this little bucket seat that fits in your bathroom sink.
Yep.
It's warm against the baby's skin. It holds water, but it doesn't absorb the water. And so you don't get any of the mold or the mildew. You can set this thing up with your baby in your arms, and you're using it at your bathroom sink. You're not in the kitchen where you were just working with raw meat. And and you're at a comfortable bathing height. You're not leaning over your big, hard bathtub. And then even when they're done taking their bath, you don't have this giant piece of plastic that is, sitting on the dryer or sitting in the shower. Yeah. It just hangs on the back of your door. It was really, really cool. Yeah. And we gave it to a girlfriend, said, try this thing out. She had it for several days. I went to get it back, and she was like, wait, you need this back? I was like, okay, she likes it. Sent it to some other people, and things were going pretty good. We were kind of just testing it. And by the way, everybody who was testing it, it was kind of in secret, and we had them signing a non-disclosure agreement, which is often called an NDA, because we know that if we were going to pursue something, we wanted it to be something we could own, that we could patent. Yeah. And so we were very careful about who we talked to about it and who we showed it to, because there's all kinds of rules around getting patents and whether you sold it beforehand and all kinds of stuff. And so my husband was just doing whatever he could to understand that process by having conversations with attorneys. And there's a lot to know about patents, but just something to be aware of, So we had spent almost a year developing this, sourcing materials, when an opportunity came up to take it to a show in New York. It was a really big show, and it had the potential to kind of launch this new product into retail. Yep. So I was pregnant with our third at the time. We were still living on food storage. I was eating rice and beans and grinding wheat, making 4 loaves of bread. Seriously, we were barely making any income. And even the income that was coming in, we were paying attorneys with this hope and the dream that this is going to take off. This is the big thing, right? So I take it to the New York show, and I'm talking to all the big buyers, Target, Nordstrom, Costco, Pottery Barn, and everyone's really intrigued, and they're very curious, and they're asking me all kinds of questions like, where's this manufactured? What are your lead times? What's your wholesale price? What's your retail price? What does your retail package look like? Do you carry insurance for this? What's your sales rate look like? What's your sell-through? And I was way out of my league, Stephen, way out of my league. Yeah. And I was trying so hard to not expose myself. But I came home after 4 days of talking to all these people. I came home from that New York show, and I had to tell my husband, after 2 years and pouring tens of thousands of dollars into this, that nobody wants it. And it's a no. Everybody said no. And I was emotional. I felt like a complete and total failure as a designer, as an entrepreneur, as a mother, as a provider. It was like I was telling you earlier, my ego was hurting big time, and it hurt. And it was embarrassing. I didn't want to talk to my neighbors about it or my mother-in-law. I wanted it to all go away, and I wanted to not have to pursue this dream anymore. And my husband, fortunately, he looked at me and he said, Katie, they didn't tell you no. I was like, well, yeah, technically those aren't the words that came out of their mouth, but nobody wrote an order, and they asked me all these questions and I didn't have the answers to them. And he said, no, that's just it. They asked you a bunch of questions and we just didn't have the answers to them. All we need to do is answer those questions and they'll all buy it. Answer those questions and we'll be shipping this product all over the world. And in that moment, Stephen, my head was shouting, you're wrong. This is too hard. I'm so tired. Can we just stop it? But my body was saying he's right. And I made the choice to listen to my body. And I was like, you know what? There's something amazing here. And I'm not ready to give up on it. It had been 2 years, honestly, in this process. And I was still feeling broke financially. And in a lot of ways now very broken. And I made the choice, what better way to go when you're at your very bottom than up? That's your only choice is to go up. And I said, I'm just going to keep going. Okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to answer all of these questions. And a year later, we took it back to the trade show. And this time, a year later, everybody who came into the booth placed an order. That moment completely transformed my life. And there's so much more I'm not sharing. We missed our flight to that show, and the fire marshal told us to take our booth down, 10 hours before the show started. And then the product was stuck in customs and it wasn't making its way from China. And so much opposition. But the thing I share with people is that opposition, those hurdles are there to teach you something essential. And if we keep resisting it, we keep getting mad about it, we keep getting frustrated. And by the way, those are very human feelings. Yes, get those feelings out. And then when you have a chance to take a deep breath, look at it with very honest eyes and say, what can I learn from this? And take that learning, take that gift and take it to the next step. We've got to keep moving. And when we do this, that's ultimately where we find the answers that we've been looking for. And so what happened after that moment is everybody who came into the booth placed an order. Within a year, we generated over $2 million. We'd gone from being nobodies to being superstars in the industry. We were, within weeks, we had distribution in 26 different countries. We were named Product of the Year by Pregnancy and Newborn Magazine. Within 6 months, it was on the Ellen DeGeneres show, the Rachel Ray show. It was the best kind of madness after that point. And I continually look back and think, what if I had given up when it was so hard, when it was painful, when it was embarrassing, when I felt like a failure?
Well, you'd be in a very different place now, I'm sure, than where you are now, which is, it's amazing what one choice, one decision can do as well. And I love the idea of a decision is like one person always told me a decision means D and Cesare is like the etymology of the word, which means like cutting away from something, right? Which I always like. And so, you can see like you cut away from everything. Yes. Made it happen, and it's an amazing story. I mean, getting onto all those huge platforms, selling so many products around the world. Yeah, it's incredible. But also, what I really take away from a product standpoint too, which I think is a good thing to take away for everybody listening, is like, number one, you knew the market like the back of your hand, which is very important. You knew the offers that were out there. You knew the products that were out there. You knew everything about them, which is really, and therefore you were able to craft something that was not out there in a number of different times, because you've not just done it once, you've done it again and again.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. So then just to kind of give everyone a feel for like how many products are in the business now, and, and let's talk about Amazon as well, because I know you sell on Amazon, or at least the brand sells on Amazon. So let's chat about that.
Yeah, just to give people a sense for the scale of this company, we were in 2,000 stores in the US, 26 different countries. We do business with all the major retailers like Target and Costco and Nordstrom, and even internationally, all of the major retailers. We have about 20 different products, and that's not including different colorways and that sort of thing. Yeah. And every time we have developed another product, it all ties back to the values of our company. Yes. And those values that we identified are these 4 things. They're simplicity, family, independence and freedom, and now and wow. And the thing that really has made our company so unique and stand out is we understood the importance of those values, and then taking those values and infusing them into every touch point of the business. I'm talking, the order sheet that the retailers are filling out. Is it simple? Does it make sense? Is it coherent with my brand and the values of the brand? Yeah. Even the conversations and the interactions with my manufacturers. Yep. And of course, the messaging on the website and the whole checkout process for the customers, it had to be in alignment with those values, because I just am an individual who I feel my greatest when I'm in alignment and in integrity. And I was trying to figure out, how can I infuse that integrity into my company? And it even shows up in things like the packaging. How can I be thoughtful in my packaging? And some of my favorite features are surprises that people aren't expecting. When they buy the product, they bring it home, they take it out, and printed inside the box, as you look through the little window, there's a little note from me, and it says, "Give your baby a big hug from me, heart, Katie." And it's these touch points that make people feel something. And fortunately, this was something I learned really early on, was the power of human connection and sharing a story out of the intention of helping people see what's possible for them, and not, hey, everybody, look at me. Because the moment we do that, it creates a separateness. And I was always trying to understand, how can I find common ground, build bridges, and create similarity and be relatable to the person who's looking for solutions.
Awesome. Well, the thing that, this is an incredible story. And congratulations, of course, on everything you've done. It's not unbelievable. It's an unfair comment. It's amazing is what it is. And it's amazing in the best sense possible. But what I'd like to just touch on before we finish up is some people might be listening and might think, cool. You were a product designer. Your husband was a product designer.
Yeah.
You're able to do all those things. I'm not any of those things, but
Yeah.
I would at some point like to build a brand, and it maybe not ever build it as big as your brand, but start to build a brand, get passionate about the brand, and get it to bloggers, do some of the things we talked about on the call. But I'm not a designer. I'm not any of those things. What could you say to those people? Because I know that's what's going to go through some people's minds that are listening right now.
Yeah. Okay. This is such a good question. And I have two things that I would say to that individual is there is something that you are really good at. There is something that is very natural or intuitive to you, and that you've also probably worked on and developed and honed that skill. And so know and understand where you're really, really good, and stay in your lane. Stay in your lane, and don't try and be all things to everybody. It's really a great way to get lost and drowned out in the noise. And so understand what your specialty is, what your gift is, and then two, be willing to go find the experts and the people who can help you in the areas where you're not strong, and either coach and train and teach your team or yourself, or understand what you need to do in order to strengthen and build your company in that area where maybe you're weak. You know, when I first started, I was doing everything in my business. I was doing the graphics and making the brochures, and I wasn't a trained graphic designer. I had to learn QuickBooks and understand how to, itemize things and put a SKU number on it and invoice people and all of those things that I just didn't like, but I had to be open and willing to learn those pieces of it because I had a bigger why, if you will. Like I had a greater reason why I needed to know and understand those. Did I like those things? No, I didn't. I still don't. But I know that I need to understand those things in order for my business, my company, to be a big enough vehicle for me to have the kind of impact that I want to have in the world. So those are the two things that I would say is identify the things that you are really good at and double down on those things and keep being really, really good and world class at those things. And then go find experts, coaches, teachers, trainers who are really good at that thing that you're lacking and work alongside them. And that's a really important distinction, by the way, Stephen, is there were multiple times in my company as I was growing it where I felt like I'm not good at this thing and I need to hand it off to somebody else and let them own it. And that's a big mistake. Yeah. I now work and coach and mentor with entrepreneurs, and I always tell them the answers that you're looking for, they come through you. I don't have the power and the authority to make those decisions. I really feel like the companies, the brands, the products that we create are between us and our creator. Like that's a gift and a co-creation process. I can help you get clarity and find the answers that you need. But the moment I step in and make all the decisions for you, I'm taking away your power. And I want to do the opposite with entrepreneurs. I want to empower you. I want you to level up in your life and level up your business. And that's my whole goal and incentive. And so that's the style of coaching that I have. And that's what I learned I needed within my company was I needed mentors who were going to help me have the mental shift that I needed and the perspective that I needed in order to have the clarity to make the decisions and keep moving the business and growing the business. So that's what I would say is even when you're looking for these coaches and these mentors, don't look to them to take it over for you because that's just handing over your power. And that's a recipe for disaster. And I've done it plenty of times.
Oh, me too. Absolutely. I hear you. No, it's the abdication, right? And it's a massive thing. Well, they're great answers. So then quick one just before we finish up, then I mentioned I'd ask you a little bit about how have you seen the role of Amazon, if anything?
Oh, yeah. So Amazon is such an exciting conversation because it was just coming on the scene as I was hitting the multi-million marks. And so it was really exciting. Like if I go back to the early piece of our conversation, the fact that we were manufacturing this on such a big scale, it all had to be orchestrated because it's a hard good. Yes. And we had to tool the stamp to make the product, if you will. It's like, tens of thousands of dollars. So I just wanted to kind of continue that piece. I started with cut and sew products, but in order to do this product that required a bigger investment, I had to get all of those orders at the same time. So that's why the trade show was so essential for us. But what's cool is what you're doing with your clients is they can get their volumes up to that just simply by selling on Amazon. And we noticed the opportunities on Amazon very early on because they were doing a very good job building their audience and providing awesome solutions to people at a very competitive price. And there's some really important things to be aware of when you're selling on Amazon. And I learned these things the hard way. And there were a lot of distributors who wanted to buy my product at a discounted price, right? Just below wholesale, actually. But they would buy in big volume, so it makes sense. They would buy really big volume, and they would want to discount it on Amazon. And we set up all kinds of alerts, Stephen, that the moment somebody did that, we immediately cut them off. They were we did not give second chances. They were never given a chance to buy product from us again. And first, we would tell them, bump it back up. And if they didn't, then we would just have to sit there and wait. It was so hard and frustrating. Wait for them to sell through their inventory, and then they were on the blacklist. They did not get privileges to buy from us anymore. It's essential when, especially you're building a brand, you have to maintain the value of the brand. And discounting, there is a time and a place for discounting, but it's not on Amazon.
No, and it's interesting because years ago we used to buy products from wholesalers in the UK. We also bought directly from brands, kind of like the way you sold to people. And the thing was, we actually said to those brands, hey, stop selling to all those people. And we tried to negotiate an exclusivity because we were saying you should only sell to one person. And if it's not us, that's fine. But there's no point selling to all these resellers because, they're fighting for the buy box and they're reducing the price. It just doesn't make any sense. Of course, they didn't listen to us. And they decided to do their own thing. And as a result of that, it tanked their price, and that brand are no longer doing very well anymore because of that. Now, that said, though, that's not a negative. It's just something that can happen.
You just have to be aware of it.
Yeah,
and protect it.
Yeah, but I suppose just it's cool for our members because again, we've this process called invasion, right? And what we do is our members, they work with US companies who don't want to sell in the European Union, have no interest whatsoever.
Okay.
And what they do is they negotiate exclusivity agreements where they become the distributor of that brand on Amazon in Europe, but they're the only people that sell it in Europe, And it's good for the companies that don't want to sell in Europe because they're like, well, it's another channel outside the US and I've got one person taking care of that. So I thought it was interesting that you brought that up because that's a benefit a lot of our members provide to those companies who, they want to partner rather than do it themselves, So
I mean, in so many ways, Stephen, that's how I was able to scale my company so quickly because when things took off, I didn't have any infrastructure. It was me, my husband, and my brother-in-law. And so very quickly we had to figure out this game. And part of it was working with international distributors.
Yep.
And because they were paying cash up front, they were buying the products, they were essentially picking it up from the factory. It didn't require more hours from us necessarily. And so it was a really good way for us to scale up. And I need to tell you that very quickly, Amazon became our biggest customer. Yeah. And we treated it that way from the very beginning. And it was like you were talking about, we were always doing whatever we could to optimize our ranking and then maintain that ranking and, keep the reviews up and make sure that we had the spots that we needed. And then we very quickly saw that, we're letting all of these other people sell on Amazon. Why not save that for ourselves? Exactly. And so we started being very selective about who we were selling to and whether or not they were selling on Amazon. And then we very quickly decided, Amazon was courting us. They wanted to sell our products on Amazon themselves. And we did a lot of research and kind of looked into it and ran the numbers. And it actually made so much more sense to just do FBA Amazon. And so that's where we always stayed. And it's been really, really good for our company. And even while we have had really big retailers, I'm talking, Costco, Target, Nordstrom, Amazon consistently was always our biggest customer. And we just always dedicated the time and the attention and resources to it so that we could win that game.
Yeah, it's interesting because in that category you're in, it's a very competitive category as well. And obviously you've got a very unique product, but definitely in that category, we would always say, you're going to have to get into really pushing things, pushing the rankings, PPC, etc. And it's great. You guys have mastered that. You've got a great brand. You're growing it like crazy. And it's awesome. And for anybody that's watching now who wants to move into that, that's the level. At that competitive level, that's the level you got to play at. Whereas our members, they're selling, sometimes the bottom of underneath the washing machine to stop the washing machine scratching the floor. It's not the same kind of product, right? It's not the same kind of brand, but it's an interesting conversation for people who want to eventually move into building this bigger thing like what you've done. But obviously you've done it on a massive scale. So then with that said, I mean, it's been amazing. I've learned a lot. Everybody listening, I'm sure, is learning a lot. I haven't really been looking at the comments at all. I'm focusing on this chat. And so with that said, what's kind of like the piece of advice you might give people at the end? I know it's a very broad question, and if it's too broad, no problem.
Sure.
But if there's any advice you give in life, business, what's kind of like, if I say there's only one thing you can say, what would that be?
Oh gosh.
Give you a hard
Well, I had something else that I needed to say really quick before I say the one thing.
Go for it.
I love this conversation that we're having because the story I just shared with you is really, it's different. It's unique. I understand that. Yeah. And it was, I think in so many ways, it was indicative of what was possible at the time. Like Amazon didn't exist. And so what you were teaching your clients to do, I think is actually a very smart way to do it. I was risking so much and putting it all on the line. Yeah. And fortunately, it did take off. And in some ways, we do just have to go all in like that in order for it to take off. But I think when I work with my clients, a lot of times I tell them to do exactly what you're sharing with your clients. It's like, build up your audience, generate some revenue so you have a baseline, and then go and do the brand creation, the unique product, the tooling in Asia, if you will. I think this is a very smart way to do business, and it's an opportunity for us to test the market, get to know the customers, really dial in on our messaging and the story and the brand. And so it's way less of a hope and a dream, if you will, and it's very calculated and smart. So I had to share that because sometimes people hear my story and they're like, oh, I should be like Katie. I should do it like Katie. No. The reason I tell my story and I share my story is just to inspire you in your story. And the moment we tell ourselves that I need to be like Katie, again, that's like giving our power away.
Yes.
Absolutely. That is totally giving our power away. Yes. And so I would just invite here, you want the number one piece of advice I will give these people and this amazing audience, and I give my clients every time I'm talking to them, is take a deep breath. Take a moment to just be still.
Yeah.
Be quiet. Push out the noise. The answers that you're looking for, the clarity that you want so bad, the more we frantically chase after it, the more it continues to be outside of our reach. And I have chosen to pursue this path of entrepreneurship as a vehicle for me to become the woman that God created me to be. And I've been through multiple experiences where it was very likely that I was going to lose my company. And in those moments, I had to confront what we were talking about earlier. I had to confront my ego and my neediness of this thing. I needed it to like make me feel important and significant in the world. And over again, God has been teaching me that it's not about all of that stuff and the noise. And the greatest opportunity isn't in what we're doing, but it's who we are being. And that's so much of what I'm teaching my entrepreneurs. And it's cool because I use brand and teaching people brand to help them truly get in tune with themselves and who they are and what they value in life, and understand how to take that realness, that authenticity, and infuse it into a movement and a message that people resonate with and they want to be a part of. And that is powerful stuff. And the cool thing that happens, Stephen, is rather than having to chase after retailers, customers, the media, all of that attention that I shared with you that our company and our brand has gotten over and over again, the interesting thing is they've all come to us.
Yeah.
And it's not a mistake. It's that realness, that authenticity. It's the infusion of values and being clear on those things. And that comes from being still, being quiet, not telling ourselves that we have to be like everybody else, but just actually blocking that out and saying, okay, what makes us different? What makes us unique? And who are we? That's what I would say.
Well, I love that. And so tell everybody listening, like, where can we go to get more of this? Because everyone, as I'm loving this talk, I want to hear more. How can people hear more? I no doubt we'll have you back here in the future to do something together. I think we have to do something, but even for now, like, there's got to be somewhere we can send people to check out what you're doing.
Yeah. So if it's okay, there's actually 2 places I would send you, and it just depends on where you're at in your journey and what you're looking for. If you have a 6-figure or even 7-figure business, but you've primarily been white labeling or drop shipping products, and you want to understand how to build a powerful brand like we've been talking about, then you can go to notnormals.com, and it's without any of the vowels. So NTNRMLS.com. And like once a quarter, we put on a workshop where people come and they understand the process. Because here's the interesting thing. You said earlier, Katie, you're a designer. You understand this. Yes, but I was trained in this art. And I've learned how to ask the right questions and the whole process of creation and design thinking. And that's what I teach my students, is this whole process. And like I said, they then are empowered to powerfully lead their company and not just try and hand it over to somebody else. Yep. So that if that's where you're at in your company and you want to understand how to build a brand, go to notnormals.com. Or if what I'm sharing with you and you're like, I need like a one-on-one personal coach who is talking to me once a week or twice a month and saying like, helping me get that clarity and helping me tap in and access my own power, that's what I love to do. I'm really good at it. And so you can go to katierichardson.com and I can show you how to radically transform your company. And it's cool because the things that we do inside of this high-end coaching, Stephen, it shows up in the bank account very fast. And I have clients who take a big leap of faith, they make a big investment in themselves, and within weeks, they have 5x their revenues. And they like, it's kind of blowing their mind.
Right.
But it comes down to what I was saying earlier. It's who we are being within our company as we lead, even in our marketing and our advertising, who we are being versus what we are doing, and understanding how to show up powerfully in our business.
Well, that's awesome. Make sure to get over to those spots if it's a fit for you guys. No doubt, though, show some love to Katie. It's been an unbelievable talk. I've really, really learned a lot, even that I can take into the different companies we run. So it's been really great for me. So thanks again for your time. I know it's hard to get your time. You're a busy lady. You got lots of kids and businesses and everything. So thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure everybody else here does as well. And yeah, we look forward to having you on again in the future. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. This was such an honor. And honestly, like, I just want to connect with people. So even if those 2 places I just told you, if you just want to say, thanks, Katie, and this is what I was hearing for myself, you can even hop onto Instagram, katie.live, send me a DM. I read those personally. I will respond to you. I love, if you can't tell, I love connecting with people. I want to do whatever I can to help you, inspire you, empower you in your own journey.
Well, look, it's not every day that such a successful business owner actually offers that. So thanks so much for that. And anybody here, look, do it. You know, I know we're obviously working with everybody listening, but I'm bringing people like Katie here because I think it's important that we just share other people's messages. And I've no problem at all endorsing everything you're talking about. You're just amazing what you do. So thanks again. And we'll definitely have you on in the future. And it's just been awesome. Thanks, Katie.
Thank you. Bye-bye.